"Father, they're laughing at you again." 10-year-old Giulia stood in the doorway of what had once been their villa's grandest room, now nearly empty save for a simple wooden table where her father hunched over wax tablets, calculating how many more days they could afford bread. The morning sun cast long shadows through the columns, the same light that had once illuminated gatherings of Rome's most powerful citizens in this very space. Marcus Aurelius Maximus looked up from his calculations, his hands bearing the calluses of manual labor where once they had only known the weight of a senator's seal. Through the open atrium they could hear the cruel laughter of passing citizens who had gathered outside their gate, as they did every morning now, to mock the fallen senator who cleaned chamber pots in the forum. "Let them laugh, little dove," Marcus said softly, opening his arms to his youngest daughter. "Their laughter reveals more about their character than ours." But Giulia didn't run to embrace him. Instead, tears streaming down her face, she repeated the words she'd heard in the market that morning. "They call you Marcus the Mop now. They say you betrayed Rome for gold, and now you grovel in filth where you belong." The words cut deeper than any gladiator's blade could have. Marcus closed his eyes, remembering how different life had been just 3 months ago, before his world crumbled like pillars in an earthquake. That fateful morning had begun with such promise. Marcus had awakened in his villa on the Palatine Hill, surrounded by the treasures of a lifetime of service to Rome. The frescoes on his walls depicted the victories of his ancestors, men who had fought with Scipio Africanus and served under divine Augustus. His beloved wife Claudia had been dead for 2 years, taken by a fever that no physician could cure, but her presence still filled every corner of their home. "Father, Leonardo stole my stylus." Giulia's voice had echoed through the marble halls that morning. "I did not, you little harpy." Leonardo, 15 and growing into the image of his father, protested from the tablamanum, where he practiced his rhetoric. "Both of you cease this nonsense." Sofia, 17 and already possessing her mother's regal bearing, had intervened. "We are patricians, not street brawlers." Act accordingly. Marcus had smiled at the familiar morning chaos. His children were his world now, the only light that penetrated the darkness. Claudia's death had brought. He dressed in his toga, with the broad purple stripe that marked his senatorial rank, the fabric worth more than most Romans saw in a lifetime. "Important session today, Father?" Sofia had asked as they gathered for the morning meal in the triclinium, reclining on couches that had been in the family for generations. "The most important of my career," Marcus had replied, accepting a cup of well-watered wine from their slave, Lucius, who had served the family faithfully for 20 years. "The emperor himself will attend. We're voting on the grain distribution to the province. If my proposal passes, no child in the empire will go hungry this winter. Mother would be proud," little Giulia had said quietly, and they all paused, that familiar ache settling over the morning meal like fog over the Tiber. Marcus had kissed each child's forehead before departing, even Leonardo, who protested that he was too old for such displays, but secretly still craved his father's affection. Sofia ensured that Leonardo attends his training at the Campus Martius, and Giulia gets to her music lessons with the Greek tutor. "I know, Father. Go save the empire." He had smiled at his eldest. "What would I do without you? Probably forget to eat and wear mismatched sandals." She had laughed. Her mother's laugh. The walk to the Senate House had taken him through the Forum Romanum, past the Temple of Vesta where the eternal flame burned, through the Basilica Giulia where merchants hawked their wares. Citizens had bowed as he passed, calling out, "Salve, Senator," with genuine respect. Marcus had served Rome with distinction for 15 years, known for his integrity in a city where corruption festered like an untreated wound. But as he climbed the steps to the Curia, something felt different. Fellow senators avoided his gaze. The lictors, the official bodyguards, seemed to grip their fasces tighter. And there at the entrance stood Gaius Cassius Brutus, the emperor's new advisor, a man who smiled like a snake and whose ambition knew no bounds. "Marcus Aurelius Maximus," Cassius had announced, his voice carrying across the forum. By order of the emperor you are accused of treason against the Roman state." The words had echoed off the ancient stones like thunder. Marcus felt his world tilt. What madness is this? Marcus had demanded. "I have served Rome faithfully." Silence. Cassius produced a scroll. "We have evidence that you conspired with the Parthians, selling military secrets for gold. 20 witnesses have testified. Your own seal was found on correspondence with the enemy." "Lies," Marcus had roared. "I demand to face my accusers. I demand a trial before the Senate. The evidence has already been presented to the emperor. Your property is forfeit to the state. Your senatorial rank is stripped. You may keep your family villa out of the emperor's mercy, but you are banished from public office forever." The forum had erupted in shocked whispers. Marcus the incorruptible, Marcus the just, a traitor. But Cassius held up documents with what appeared to be Marcus's seal, and in Rome, appearance was often more powerful than truth. Furthermore, Cassius had continued, his voice dripping with false regret, "As you have brought shame upon the Senate, you will perform public penance. You will clean the curia and the public latrines for 1 year, so that all Rome might see that justice applies even to the mighty." The humiliation was complete. Guards stepped forward to strip Marcus of his toga with the purple stripe, leaving him in a simple tunic. The crowd that had moments before called out greetings now jeered and spat. Someone threw a rotten apple that struck his cheek. "Father," he had turned to see Leonardo pushing through the crowd, his face red with rage. The boy had heard the announcement from his rhetoric teacher and run all the way from the Forum Arboreum. "Don't come closer, son," Marcus had warned, but Leonardo reached him anyway, standing between his father and the mob. "My father is no traitor," the boy had shouted. "Anyone who says otherwise is a liar and a coward." Cassius had laughed. Like father, like son, perhaps the boy should join his father in the latrines. "Touch my son and I'll—" Marcus had started forward, but the guards restrained him. "You'll what?" Cassius had stepped close, whispering so only Marcus could hear. "You'll do nothing, because you have nothing. Your wife is dead, your wealth is gone, and soon your children will abandon you when they realize what you've become. This is what happens to those who oppose progress, who cling to outdated notions of honor." That night, Marcus had returned to a villa already being stripped of its valuables by state officials. The slaves, except for old Lucius, who chose to stay without payment, had been taken. The furniture, the art, the gold, all gone except for what the law allowed them to keep for basic survival. Sofia had met him at the door, her face pale but determined. "We heard everything. The whole city is talking." "I'm innocent," Marcus had said simply. "We know," Leonardo had replied fiercely. "We'll prove it. We'll find who did this." "How?" Giulia had asked, tears streaming. "They took everything. They say we're the family of a traitor now. My friend Giulia says her parents won't let her speak to me anymore." Marcus had gathered his children close. "Listen to me, all of you. They can take our gold, our status, our reputation, but they cannot take who we are. We are still the family of Marcus Aurelius Maximus, and we will endure this with dignity." But dignity was hard to maintain when survival itself became a question. Within a week they were eating bread and olive oil instead of the rich foods they'd known. Within 2 weeks, Marcus had reported for his punishment duty, pushing a cart full of waste through the streets, while citizens who had once bowed to him held their noses and laughed. The worst had come a month later, during the festival of Minerva. Marcus, exhausted from a day of scrubbing the Senate floor on his knees, had encountered a group of young patricians, including several who had once sought his daughter Sofia's hand in marriage. "Look," one had shouted. "It's Marcus the mock. Tell us, great senator, is Parthian gold worth crawling in Roman filth?" They had surrounded him, pushing him back and forth between them like children with a ball. His bucket of dirty water had spilled across his tunic, and they had laughed as he fell to his knees in the mud. "Please," he had said quietly, "I have work to finish." "Please," they had mocked. "The mighty Marcus says please." One of them, Quintus, who had once dined at Marcus's table, had grabbed the bucket and dumped the remaining filth over Marcus's head. "There, now you look like what you are." That was when Sofia had appeared, having come to bring her father food. She had seen everything. "Quintus," she had said, her voice ice cold, "I remember when you sat at our table, praising my father's wisdom, seeking his support for your own political aspirations. How quickly the weak reveal themselves when the wind changes." Quintus had flushed red. "Your father is a traitor, Sofia, and you're the daughter of a traitor. You're nothing now." "I am the daughter of Marcus Aurelius Maximus," she had replied, helping her father to his feet. "And that will mean something long after your name is forgotten." Now, 3 months into their ordeal, the family survived on the copper coins Marcus earned from his degrading work, and the vegetables Sofia grew in their once ornamental garden. Leonardo had been expelled from his military training. No trainer would accept the son of a traitor. Giulia's music teacher had refused to continue her lessons. Yet they endured, because Marcus had taught them that true Roman virtue was not in wealth or status, but in facing adversity with courage. "Father," Sofia said, entering the room where Marcus still held Giulia, "there's something you should know." Old Lucius was cleaning the cellar, trying to make more storage space for the vegetables, when he found something strange. "Not now, Sofia," Marcus said wearily. "I must return to the forum soon, or they'll dock my pay." "Father, please." "He found a wall that sounds hollow. He thinks there might be a hidden room." Marcus looked up, frowning. The villa had been in Claudia's family for generations, but he'd never heard of any hidden chambers. Still, Claudia had been full of secrets, little surprises she'd planned for the children, hidden gifts she'd leave for him to find. "Show me," he said. They descended into the cellar, where old Lucius waited with a lamp. The slave, though Marcus no longer thought of him as such, since he stayed by choice, pointed to a section of wall near the old wine storage. "Listen, Dominus," Lucius said, tapping the wall with his knuckles. The sound was indeed hollow. Leonardo, despite his 15 years trying to act the man, bounced with excitement. "What if Mother hid something? What if it's treasure?" "Don't be foolish," Sofia said, but her eyes sparkled with the same hope. Marcus ran his hands along the wall, feeling for any seam or mechanism. His fingers found a slight depression, and when he pressed it, there was a soft click. A section of the wall swung inward, revealing darkness beyond. Lucius brought the lamp forward, and they all gasped. The hidden chamber was vast, far larger than seemed possible, but it wasn't the size that stole their breath. It was the contents. Amphora after amphora lined the walls, and when Leonardo opened one, gold coins spilled out like water. "By the gods," Lucius whispered, but that wasn't all. There were scrolls, hundreds of them, and statues of gold and silver. In the center of the room stood a pedestal with a sealed letter upon it, addressed in Claudia's hand, "For my beloved Marcus, when hope seems lost." With trembling fingers, Marcus broke the seal and read, "My dearest husband, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you have faced trials I prayed would never come. Know that my family were not mere merchants, as I told you, but guardians of something far greater. We have protected wealth from the Republic's last days, hidden from those who would use it for evil. 100 million denarii rest in this chamber. But more importantly, there are documents here that prove the corruption of many in the Senate, including evidence that Cassius has been taking bribes from Rome's enemies for years. I never told you because I wanted you to be free of this burden, to serve Rome with clean hands. But now, if you need it, use this wisely. Not for revenge, but for justice. Not for our family's glory, but for Rome's salvation. Remember, my love, that wealth is nothing without honor. And honor is proven not in triumph, but in trial. Our children must learn this lesson. Do not let gold corrupt what adversity has purified. With eternal love." Claudia. Marcus sank to his knees, the letter clutched to his chest. His children gathered around him, stunned by the revelation. "Father," Leonardo breathed, "we're rich. We can destroy Cassius. We can restore our name. We can move back to the Palatine. Giulia exclaimed. I can have my music teacher back. But Sofia, wise beyond her 17 years, watched her father's face. It's not that simple, is it, father? Marcus stood slowly, looking at each of his children. We have a choice to make. We could use this gold tomorrow, buy back our status, bribe the right people. We could live in comfort again. But, Leonardo asked, but what would we learn? What would you become? These 3 months, as horrible as they've been, have shown me who my children really are. Sofia, you've held this family together with strength your mother would be proud of. Leonardo, you've defended our honor when grown men stayed silent. And Giulia, you've kept your sweet spirit even when the world gave you every reason to become bitter. He gestured to the gold around them. This could buy us ease, but would it buy us character? Would it teach you that justice can be purchased, that honor is nickable? Then what do we do? Sofia asked. Marcus picked up one of the scrolls, examining it. It contained detailed records of bribes Cassius had taken from Parthian agents, the very crime of which Marcus had been accused. We use this wisely, as your mother said, not to buy our way back to comfort, but to expose the truth. It will be dangerous. Cassius has powerful friends. They might try to silence us before we can reveal this. Are you willing to risk everything for justice? Leonardo stepped forward first. I'd rather die standing for truth than live kneeling in comfort. Sofia nodded. Mother kept these secrets to protect Rome. We should honor that. Little Giulia took her father's hand. I don't need music lessons if I have my family. Marcus felt tears run down his cheeks, not of sorrow, but of pride. Then we planned carefully. We cannot simply present these documents. Cassius would have us killed and the evidence destroyed. We need allies, those in the Senate who still value justice. Senator Quintus Fabius, Sofia suggested. He spoke against your conviction. He might help. And General Lucius Nerva, Leonardo added. He always respected you, father. He commands 3 legions. Marcus nodded. We'll start there. But remember, we tell no one about the gold. As far as Rome knows, we're still the disgraced family surviving on scraps. Our poverty is our disguise. Over the following weeks, the family developed their plan. By day, Marcus continued his humiliating work, enduring the jeers and mockery with new purpose. Each insult was a reminder of the justice to come. By night, he and his children carefully copied the incriminating documents, creating multiple sets in case any were destroyed. Sofia, with her keen intelligence, analyzed the financial records, tracing the full extent of Cassius's corruption. She discovered he had not only taken Parthian gold, but had been selling information about grain shipments to pirates, causing the very shortages Marcus had tried to address. Leonardo, using his connections with younger Romans who still respected his courage, carefully spread whispers of doubt about Cassius. Not enough to draw suspicion, but enough to prepare the ground for revelation. Even little Giulia played her part, using her innocent appearance to listen to conversations in the market, gathering intelligence about Cassius's movements and plans. The breakthrough came when old Lucius, through his network of slaves and freedmen, learned that Cassius was planning to have Marcus killed. He grows nervous, Dominus. Lucius reported. He sees how you endure with dignity, how some citizens begin to question your guilt. He plans an accident during the next festival. Then we move before he does, Marcus decided. The festival of Mars arrived with all the pomp Rome could muster. Crimson banners fluttered from every temple, and the streets filled with citizens dressed in their finest togas. The morning sacrifices had been favorable. The priests declared that Mars himself smiled upon Rome. But in the shadow of the great temple of Jupiter, Marcus Aurelius Maximus pushed his cart of cleaning supplies through the crowd, invisible in his humiliation. "Make way for the mop man," someone shouted, and the sea of patricians parted with exaggerated disgust, holding perfumed cloths to their noses. Marcus kept his eyes down, but his mind was sharp. Today, Everything would change. Hidden beneath the rags in his cart were the copied documents that would destroy Cassius. Sofia had sewn them into waterproof leather pouches, and Leonardo had tested the route to Senator Fabius's house a dozen times. The plan was simple but dangerous. During the height of the festival, when Cassius would be presiding over the games in the Colosseum, Marcus would deliver the evidence to Senator Fabius and General Nerva. They had already been approached quietly by Leonardo, who had risked everything to arrange the meeting. But as Marcus turned toward the agreed-upon location, he saw something that made his blood freeze. Cassius himself stood at the corner, surrounded by his personal guard, not at the Colosseum where he should be. The snake was hunting. Marcus," Cassius called out with false cheer. "How fortuitous. I was just thinking about you." Marcus stopped, gripping his cart. "Dominus Cassius, should you not be at the games? The games can wait. I've been hearing disturbing rumors, old friend. Some say you've been speaking against me, claiming innocence, stirring dissent. I merely do my work, as commanded," Marcus replied carefully. Cassius stepped closer, his guards forming a circle that blocked any escape. "Yes, your work. Tell me, Marcus, have you ever wondered why I chose you for destruction? Of all the senators who opposed me, why you?" Marcus remained silent, but his mind raced. Where were his children? They should be in position by now. "It was your wife," Cassius continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Beautiful Claudia. Did you know she refused me once? Before she married you, I sought her hand. But she chose you, a nobody from an old family with more honor than gold." The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. This was about revenge? "Everything is about revenge, you fool. But Claudia was cleverer than I thought. She hid something, didn't she? Something valuable. My spies have been watching your villa. We know you found something in the cellar." Marcus's heart pounded, but he kept his face neutral. "We found old wine jugs, nothing more." Cassius laughed. "Lies don't become you, Marcus. But it doesn't matter. You see, I've invited your children to a special gathering. They should be arriving at my villa right about now, thinking they're meeting with Senator Fabius." His smile was predatory. "Amazing how easy it is to forge a message." Terror seized Marcus. His children were walking into a trap. "If you harm them, harm them. I'm not a monster, Marcus. I'm merely going to offer them a choice. They can publicly denounce you as a traitor, accepting my protection and patronage, or they can share your fate. Children are so practical, don't you think? Especially when faced with pain." Marcus's hand went to the hidden knife in his cart, the one he'd carried since learning of Cassius's assassination plan. But before he could draw it, a voice rang out across the forum. "People of Rome." Everyone turned. There, standing on the steps of the Temple of Vesta, stood Sofia, wearing her mother's finest stola, one of the few garments they'd hidden from the confiscators. She looked every inch the Roman matron, despite her youth. Beside her stood Leonardo in a toga, and little Giulia held a scroll above her head. "I am Sofia, daughter of Marcus Aurelius Maximus, and I have evidence of treason," the crowd murmured, pressing closer. Cassius's face went pale. "Seize them," he commanded his guards, but the crowd was already too thick, too curious. General Nerva appeared from behind a column, accompanied by a century of his soldiers. "Let the girl speak," he commanded. "Or do you fear the words of a child, Cassius?" Sofia's voice carried across the forum with the authority of her bloodline. "My father was accused of taking Parthian gold, but here," she held up the scroll, "is proof that the real traitor stands among us. Letters in Cassius's own hand, sealed with his ring promising military secrets to our enemies." "Forgeries," Cassius shouted, but his voice cracked. "Then let the Senate examine them." Senator Fabius emerged from the crowd, accompanied by 6 other senators who had secretly always doubted Marcus's guilt. "I call for an immediate investigation." Cassius turned to flee, but found Marcus blocking his path. The cart had been overturned, and the former senator stood tall for the first time in months. "You took everything from me," Marcus said quietly. But you forgot that a Roman's greatest strength isn't in his gold or his status. It's in his family. Cassius drew a hidden blade, lunging at Marcus, but Leonardo was there, using the combat training he'd learned before his expulsion to knock the weapon aside. The boy might have been banned from formal training, but the streets had taught him harder lessons. "Guards, arrest Cassius," General Nerva commanded, but Cassius had one more card to play. "You fools, half the Senate is involved. You think I acted alone? Release me or I'll name them all. Rome will tear itself apart." A hush fell over the forum. This was the crisis Marcus had feared. Justice might destroy Rome itself. It was little Giulia who broke the silence. The 10-year-old stepped forward, her child's voice pure and clear. "Then name them. Rome survived Carthage. Rome survived Spartacus. Rome will survive the truth." Her simple courage shamed the adults. One by one, citizens began to chant, "Truth, truth, truth." Cassius, seeing his defeat, made one last desperate attempt. He grabbed Giulia, holding the blade to her throat. "Back away or the child dies." Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm. "Giulia, remember what I taught you about fear." The little girl's eyes met her father's. "That fear is just a shadow, and shadows disappear in the light." With startling speed, she bit Cassius's hand and dropped to the ground. Leonardo and 3 soldiers were on him instantly, and the blade clattered across the stones. As Cassius was dragged away, he screamed names: a dozen senators, several merchants, even priests. Each name was carefully recorded by the scribes. Senator Fabius had wisely brought. "Marcus Aurelius Maximus, General Nerva," announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the forum. "The Senate owes you an apology. Your property will be restored, your titles returned, your honor cleansed." But Marcus raised his hand. "I need no titles, General. These months of hardship taught me more about Rome than 15 years in the Senate. I saw how the poor truly live, how justice is denied to those without gold, how quickly the powerful abandon virtue when tested." He looked at his children, who had gathered around him. "But I also saw courage in unexpected places. I saw slaves who stayed without payment, citizens who whispered support despite their fear, and most of all I saw my children become the Romans I always hoped they would be." Sofia spoke up. "Father, we should tell them about the documents we found." Marcus interrupted, giving her a meaningful look. "The gold would remain secret for now. Yes, we found extensive evidence hidden by my late wife, who it seems suspected Cassius's corruption long ago." Senator Fabius stepped forward. "Marcus, Rome needs you. Return to the Senate, help us clean out this corruption." Marcus was about to respond when a commotion erupted from the direction of Cassius's villa. A slave came running, falling to his knees before General Nerva. "General, Cassius's house. It's on fire. His servants say he had barrels of oil hidden in the cellar. The flames are spreading." Leonardo looked at his father with alarm. They had hidden some of the copied documents there, planning to reveal them gradually. But more importantly, Cassius had mentioned having their forgeries, false evidence he'd planned to use against other innocent senators. "We have to help," Sofia said immediately. "It's too dangerous," General Nerva protested. "Let it burn." But Marcus was already moving. "Romans don't stand by while the city burns. Leonardo, organize a bucket line from the fountain. Sofia, evacuate the nearby houses. Giulia, run to the Temple of Vesta and have them send their sacred water reserves." "What about you, Father?" Giulia asked. "I'm going inside. There might be servants trapped." He ran toward the burning villa, his children organizing the crowd with an efficiency that would have made Caesar proud. The fire had started in the cellar, but was spreading quickly through the wooden supports. Marcus could hear screaming from inside. Without hesitation, he plunged into the smoke. The heat was overwhelming, but he pushed forward. In the atrium, he found 3 of Cassius's slaves huddled in a corner, trapped by falling beams. "This way." he shouted, using his knowledge of Roman villa construction to guide them through the servants' quarters instead of the main halls. One by one, he got them out, but on his last trip he heard a child crying from the upper floor. Cassius's young son, a boy of only 6 years who had no part in his father's crimes. The stairs were already burning, but Marcus climbed them anyway. The boy was in his room, terrified and alone. "It's all right," Marcus said gently, wrapping the child in a wet blanket. "I'm going to get you out." The journey back was harrowing. The floor gave way behind them, and Marcus had to leap across gaps in the burning wood. His tunic caught fire, but he rolled to extinguish it, never letting go of the child. They emerged from the villa, just as the roof collapsed, the crowd cheering as Marcus handed the boy to his weeping mother, Cassius's wife, who had known nothing of her husband's treachery. "You saved my son," she sobbed. "After everything my husband did to you, children are innocent of their parents' crimes," Marcus replied, his voice hoarse from smoke. General Nerva approached, his respect evident. "Marcus, that was what any Roman should do," Marcus interrupted, "though I admit, a year ago, I might have hesitated. It seems cleaning latrines teaches humility better than sitting in the Senate." The crowd laughed, the tension finally breaking, but the celebration was premature. Over the following days, as Cassius's revelations were investigated, Rome teetered on the edge of chaos. 12 senators were arrested, but many more were implicated in lesser corruptions. The emperor himself had to intervene, declaring a general amnesty for all except the worst offenders. Marcus was officially reinstated, but he shocked everyone by refusing to return to his old life entirely. "I will serve in the Senate," he announced, "but I will also continue my work among the common people. 1 day a week, I will clean the forum, not as punishment, but as reminder." "Father, you don't have to," Sofia protested. "I want to," Marcus insisted. "Those months taught me that Rome's strength isn't in its marble columns, but in its people, all its people." The family returned to their villa, but it felt different now. The empty rooms that had once echoed with loss now seemed full of possibility. They could have refurnished it with the hidden gold, but they chose not to. Not yet. One evening, as they gathered for dinner, Leonardo asked, "Father, when will we reveal the gold? We could do so much good with it." Marcus looked at each of his children. "When the time is right. Your mother hid it for a reason, and I believe that reason hasn't fully revealed itself yet. Cassius is gone, but the corruption runs deeper. We must be patient." Sofia nodded thoughtfully. "There are still questions. How did Cassius know about the cellar? Someone must have told him. And those documents mother hid," Leonardo added. "Some of them are in a cipher we haven't broken. There's more to this story." Little Giulia, wise beyond her years, said simply, "Mother was protecting something bigger than gold, wasn't she?" Marcus smiled sadly. "Your mother was the smartest person I ever knew. If she kept secrets, they were worth keeping. But for now, we've won a victory. Rome knows the truth about Cassius, and our honor is restored." "But at what cost?" Sofia asked. "Look at your hands, father. The calluses remain. The months of humiliation can't be erased, nor should they be," Marcus replied. "These calluses remind me that dignity isn't granted by others, it's carried within. You 3 learned that lesson young. It will serve you better than any gold." That night, after the children had gone to bed, Marcus stood in the cellar's hidden chamber, holding Claudia's letter. There was a postscript he hadn't read aloud to the children. "If you're reading this, my love, then the first storm has passed. But greater storms are coming. The gold is not just wealth. It's a responsibility passed down through my family for 300 years, from the last days of the Republic. We are guardians of something that could reshape Rome itself. When our children are ready, they will understand their true inheritance. Until then, protect them, prepare them, and remember, the greatest treasures are not held in hands, but in hearts." Marcus carefully folded the letter. Outside he could hear Rome settling into sleep, the eternal city that had survived kings and tyrants, wars and plagues. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The corruption Cassius had revealed went all the way to the imperial palace. There would be those who wanted revenge, those who feared what else might be uncovered. But tonight, his family was safe, their honor restored, and their bond stronger than ever. The gold waited in the darkness, patient as time itself, while above it, 3 children slept peacefully, unaware that their true test was yet to come. As Marcus climbed the stairs, old Lucius met him with a lamp. "Dominus, there's something you should know. While cleaning today, I found another hollow wall in the children's mother's old room." Marcus felt his heart skip. "Another chamber? I haven't opened it, Dominus. But there's an inscription. It says, 'For my daughter, when she comes of age.' Sofia would be 18 in 3 months. Whatever Claudia had hidden, whatever secret she'd protected, it would soon be revealed." Marcus looked toward his children's rooms, where they slept peacefully. They had already faced so much, shown such courage, but something told him their greatest trial was yet to come. "Thank you, Lucius. We'll wait. When Sofia is ready, when the time is right." The old servant nodded and withdrew, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. Through the window the stars shone over Rome, eternal and unchanging. Somewhere among them, he liked to think, Claudia watched over them still. Tomorrow, the Senate would reconvene. The work of cleaning out corruption would begin, and Marcus would be there, not as the same man who had left in disgrace, but as someone transformed by hardship into something stronger. But tonight, he simply stood in his villa, a father protecting his children's sleep, a guardian of secrets he didn't fully understand, a Roman who had learned that true wealth could not be counted in coins, but in the courage to stand when all seemed lost. The hidden gold remained untouched, waiting. The second chamber stayed sealed, patient, and Marcus kept watch, knowing that every ending was merely a new beginning in disguise. 3 months had passed since Cassius's downfall, and Rome had settled into an uneasy peace. The autumn winds carried whispers through the forum. Some praised Marcus's mercy, others questioned why he hadn't used his restoration to crush his remaining enemies. But Marcus had learned that vengeance was a poison that killed the drinker first. Sofia's 18th birthday dawned clear and cold. The family gathered in the triclinium for breakfast, a modest meal despite their restored status. They still lived simply, the hidden fortune untouched beneath their feet. "Today you become a woman in the eyes of Rome," Marcus said, placing his hand on Sofia's shoulder. "Your mother would be so proud." Sofia smiled, but there was something knowing in her eyes. "Father, I've been having dreams. Mother speaks to me, tells me it's time." Leonardo scoffed. "Dreams are just. The dreams told me about the second chamber." Sofia interrupted. "Behind Mother's mirror, the one with the silver frame." Marcus and Lucius exchanged glances. They hadn't told the children about the discovery. "How could you know that?" Giulia asked, wide-eyed. Sofia stood, her bearing regal. "Because Mother prepared me, even if I didn't understand it then. Those lullabies she sang, the stories she told, they were instructions, codes. I only understood when I turned 18, as if something unlocked in my mind." She led them to Claudia's old room, untouched since her death. The mirror hung where it always had, reflecting their anxious faces. Sofia pressed a sequence of tiles around its frame, a pattern from one of her mother's games. Years ago, the mirror swung open. The second chamber was smaller than the first, but filled with scrolls, tablets, and at its center, a marble pedestal holding an ornate box. Sofia opened it with trembling fingers, revealing a golden seal and a letter. "My beloved daughter," Sofia read aloud, her voice shaking. "If you are reading this, then you have come of age, and the burden of our family's true purpose must pass to you. We are not merely Romans, we are the keepers of the Republic's last testament." Marcus stepped forward. "What does that mean?" Sofia continued reading. "When Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, when the Republic died and the Empire was born, a group of senators saved something precious, not gold, but knowledge. The true history of Rome, the records that emperors would burn, the wisdom they would suppress. For 300 years my family has guarded these secrets, waiting for Rome to be ready for truth instead of mythology. Leonardo whistled low. Mother was part of some ancient conspiracy, not conspiracy, Sofia corrected, still reading. Preservation. Look, she held up a scroll. This is Caesar's private correspondence, admitting he fabricated threats from Gaul to justify his wars. This one, Augus's real plans for succession, different from the official history. And this. She paused, her face paling. What? Marcus demanded. It's about the current emperor, about how he really gained power. Father, this could destroy the entire imperial system. A cold wind seemed to blow through the room, though the windows were closed. They all understood the magnitude of what they'd discovered. This wasn't wealth or even simple corruption. This was the power to rewrite history itself. There's more, Sofia said, her voice barely a whisper. Mother writes that there are other keepers. 5 families in total, each guarding part of the complete archive. She was trying to gather them all when she fell ill. She believed Rome was finally ready for the truth, that the empire had grown corrupt beyond salvation. Who are the other families? Marcus asked. Sofia consulted another document. The Flaviae, the Cornelia, the Valeria, and the Cassius's family, Leonardo exclaimed. But he was a corruption of his line's purpose, Sofia finished. His grandfather was a true keeper, but Cassius sold his portion to the highest bidder, using fragments of truth for blackmail, instead of preservation. Giulia, always perceptive, asked the crucial question, if we reveal this, won't the emperor have us all killed? Before anyone could answer, Lucius burst into the room. Dominus, soldiers approach. A full century with the emperor's own guard, Marcus's blood ran cold. Someone had betrayed them. Children, quickly. The documents. No, Sofia said firmly. We don't run. We don't hide. Mother died believing Rome could handle the truth. If we flee now, we prove her wrong. They'll kill us all, Leonardo protested. Perhaps, or perhaps the emperor's wiser than we think. Sofia picked up the golden seal. This seal bears the mark of Marcus Aurelius. Not you, father, but the philosopher emperor. He was one of the original protectors of the archive. His writings about duty and truth, they weren't just philosophy. They were instructions for future keepers. The sound of marching feet filled the atrium. Marcus stepped protectively in front of his children, but Sofia moved beside him. Together, father, we face this as a family. The doors burst open. 50 soldiers filed in, followed by a figure in imperial purple, but it wasn't the Emperor Hadrian. It was his adopted son and heir, Antoninus. Marcus Aurelius Maximus, Antoninus said formally. By order of the emperor, you and your family are commanded to appear before him immediately. On what charge? Marcus demanded. No charge. An invitation. The emperor has questions about recent discoveries. Sofia stepped forward. Your Highness, I am Sofia, daughter of Claudia of the Claudii. I bear the seal of the keepers. Antoninus's eyes widened slightly, the first crack in his imperial composure. Then the stories are true. The archive exists. It exists, and I am its guardian by right of blood and duty. Antoninus studied her for a long moment. The emperor suspected as much when Cassius fell. Too many documents, too perfectly preserved. He sent in to confirm his suspicions. He paused. You realize what you're admitting could be considered treason. Truth is never treason, Sofia replied. Only those who fear it call it so. A smile played at the corner of Antoninus's mouth. You sound like someone the emperor would like to meet. Will you come willingly? Marcus looked at his children. Leonardo's hand was on his knife, ready to fight. Giulia stood straight, no fear in her young face, and Sofia held the seal like a shield. We'll come, Marcus said. The journey to the palace was surreal. Citizens lined the streets, wondering if the Maximus family was being honored or arrested. Some threw flowers, others made signs against evil. The uncertainty was palpable. The throne room was vast, designed to intimidate. Emperor Hadrian sat upon the golden throne, his Greek beard perfectly oiled, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. Courtiers lined the walls, but at a gesture from the emperor, they filed out, leaving only the imperial family and the Maximi. "So," Hadrian said, his voice echoing in the empty hall, "the children of Marcus and Claudia. I've been watching you with great interest, Your Majesty," Marcus began, but Hadrian raised his hand. "I'm not speaking to you, Senator. I'm speaking to the girl who claims to hold the keys to Rome's true history." Sofia stepped forward, unafraid. "I make no claim, Caesar. I simply am what my mother made me, a keeper of truth." "Truth," Hadrian mused, "such a dangerous word. Do you know what your truth could do? The riots it could cause, the civil wars it could spark." "I know what lies have already done," Sofia countered. "They gave us Nero, Caligula, Domitian. They allowed corruption to fester until men like Cassius could sell Rome itself for gold." "Careful, child," Antoninus warned, but Hadrian laughed, a surprising, genuine sound. "She has spine, this one." "Very well, Sofia of the Claudia. Show me what you guard so carefully." Sofia produced a single scroll from her sleeve. "This is one of hundreds, Caesar. But perhaps start with this, your own grandfather's account of how he really gained the purple." Hadrian took the scroll, his face expressionless as he read. The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. Finally, he looked up. "My grandfather was a pragmatist. He did what was necessary for Rome's stability." He set the scroll aside. "What do you want, child? Gold? Power? A husband from the imperial family? I want what my mother wanted. A Rome that can face its own reflection without flinching, and if that reflection is too ugly to bear." It was Giulia who answered, her child's voice pure in the vast hall. "Then we clean it, like father cleaned the forum. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary." Hadrian's expression softened slightly. "You've raised interesting children, Marcus. They raised themselves, Caesar. I merely survived long enough to watch." Hadrian stood, descending from the throne to stand before them as a man, not an emperor. "I knew your wife, Sofia. Not well, but we spoke at court functions. She had a way of asking questions that seemed simple but cut to the bone. She asked me once if I thought Rome would last forever." "What did you tell her?" Sofia asked. "I said nothing lasts forever, but some things last long enough to matter." He began to pace. "I've been emperor for 21 years. I've built walls to protect Rome's borders, codified laws to protect its citizens. But I've always known the greatest threat to Rome isn't from barbarians outside, it's from the rot within." "Then help us cure it," Sofia said boldly. "You don't cure rot by revealing it all at once. You cut it out carefully, systematically, or you kill the patient." Hadrian returned to his throne. "Here is my decision. The archive you guard will be protected, but controlled. You will work with my historians to slowly, carefully introduce truth back into Roman consciousness. Some revelations now, others in a generation, still others perhaps never." "That's not what Mother wanted," Sofia protested. "Your mother is dead," Hadrian said bluntly, "and if you're not careful, you'll join her. There are forces in Rome that make Cassius look like a street thief. They know about the archive now. They'll come for you." "Who?" Marcus demanded. "The Praetorian Guard has factions that profit from lies. Several senators who appear honorable have secrets worth willing for, and there are mystery cults that claim divine right based on fabricated histories." Hadrian leaned forward. "I can protect you, but only if you work within my boundaries." Leonardo spoke for the first time. "What if we refuse? Then you leave here free citizens, and I cannot guarantee you'll survive the week." The threat hung in the air like incense. Marcus felt rage building. Hadn't his family suffered enough? But Sofia raised her hand, thinking, "Caesar, you speak of controlled truth, but who controls it? You, your successors. What happens when a new Nero sits on that throne?" "That's why I propose a covenant," Hadrian replied. "The keepers will become an official, if secret, institution. 5 families, answerable to the emperor but protected by law. You'll have resources, guards, and most importantly, legitimacy." "A cage is still a cage, even if the bars are gold," Sofia said. "Perhaps, but it's a cage that keeps you alive and your mission possible. Hadrian stood again. I'll give you 3 days to decide. Return to your villa, discuss with your family. But know this, whether you accept or refuse, the simple days are over. You've awakened something that was meant to sleep longer. They were escorted out, but at the door, Antoninus caught Sofia's arm. A word of advice, he said quietly. My father is a good emperor, but he won't live forever. I will succeed him, and I have different views on truth. Consider carefully who your real allies might be. The journey home was silent, each family member lost in thought. The street seemed darker, every shadow potentially hiding an assassin. When they reached their villa, Lucius had troubling news. Visitors came while you were gone, Dominus. They didn't enter, but they left. It was a black dagger, the kind used by the mystery cults, embedded in their door with a note, some stones are better left unturned. That night, the family gathered in the hidden chamber, surrounded by their ancestors' secrets. The weight of decision pressed upon them. We could leave Rome, Marcus suggested. Take the gold, flee to the provinces, live quietly, and abandon everything Mother died for. Sofia shook her head. No, but Hadrian's offer, it's not what she envisioned. Maybe it's better, Leonardo said thoughtfully. Think about it, official protection, resources to continue the work. Yes, it's controlled, but it's also sustainable. You're both missing the real question, Giulia said, her wisdom startling in one so young. It's not whether we accept Hadrian's offer, it's what we do with it once we have it. They all looked at her. Mother hid the truth for the right moment. Maybe that moment isn't now. Maybe it's when we're stronger, when we've built a network, when we've prepared Rome for revelation instead of revolution. Sofia smiled at her little sister. When did you become so wise? When I watched father maintain dignity while cleaning chamber pots. Sometimes the greatest victory is in surviving to fight another day. Over the next 2 days they were approached by various factions. The Cornelio family, one of the other keepers, sent a secret message of support, but the Valerii warned them against trusting Hadrian. Emperors change, but the archive endures, their matriarch wrote. On the second night, they woke to find their villa surrounded by hooded figures, not attacking, just watching, a reminder of their vulnerability. We have to decide, Marcus said as dawn broke on the third day. Sofia stood before her family, no longer a girl but a woman bearing impossible responsibility. I've made my choice. We accept Hadrian's offer, but on our terms, we'll demand protection not just for us, but for all 5 keeper families. We'll insist on a written covenant that survives individual emperors, and we'll build our own secret network, loyal to truth rather than to any throne. That's dangerous, Marcus warned. If Hadrian suspects, he expects it. He's not naive. He knows we'll play our own game within his rules. The question is whether we're clever enough to win it. And the gold? Leonardo asked. Do we reveal it? Not yet. That remains our secret advantage, but we use small portions to build our network, to protect the other keeper families, to ensure the archive survives regardless of imperial whims. They returned to the palace that afternoon. Hadrian received them in a smaller, more intimate chamber. Antoninus was there, along with several legal scribes. Your decision? The emperor asked. We accept, Sofia said, with conditions. Hadrian's eyebrow rose. You're hardly in a position to make demands. On the contrary, we hold information that could stabilize or destabilize your reign. We're offering partnership, not submission. For a moment, the room was deadly quiet. Then Hadrian laughed again. By the gods, she reminds me of Livia Augusta. Very well, state your conditions. The negotiation took hours. Sofia proved herself her mother's daughter, sharp as a gladius, unyielding on crucial points. Protection for all keeper families, autonomy in managing the archive, resources for preservation and study, the right to refuse revelations that would cause unnecessary harm. And one more thing, Sofia added. My father continues his work in the forum 1 day a week, but as a teacher, not a cleaner. He'll teach young Romans about true service, about dignity in all work. That's unusual, Hadrian mused. It's essential. The archive isn't just about preserving the past. It's about preparing the future. As the sun set, the covenant was signed. The keepers were official, if secret. The Maximus family had risen from disgrace to become guardians of Rome's most dangerous secrets. But as they left the palace, Antoninus pulled Sofia aside once more. You played that brilliantly, but be careful. My father is ill, though he hides it. When I become emperor, things will change. I have dreams of a different Rome, one where philosophy matters more than power. Then perhaps, Sofia said carefully, the archive could help build that Rome. Perhaps, but there are others who have different dreams. The Praetorian prefect, for instance. He believes might makes truth, not the other way around. Watch him carefully. That night, back in their villa, the family celebrated quietly. They had survived, even triumphed. But Sofia stood apart, reading her mother's final letter again. What troubles you? Marcus asked. Mother wrote something else. Look, she showed him a passage he hadn't seen before. The greatest secret isn't in the archive, but in our blood. We are not just keepers, but descendants of those who knew Rome before Rome. The Etruscans who taught Romans to build, to write, to divine the future. That knowledge, that power, sleeps in our veins, waiting. What does that mean? Marcus asked. I don't know, but sometimes, Father, I dream things that come true. I knew about the second chamber before you told me. And lately I've been dreaming of fire, not destruction, but transformation. Rome burning and being reborn. Marcus pulled his daughter close. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. But even as he comforted her, he felt the winds of change stirring. The archive was safe for now, but secrets have a way of demanding revelation. And somewhere in the darkness, enemies old and new were plotting. The gold remained hidden, waiting. The archive stood protected but contested. And 3 children who had learned strength through suffering now stood as guardians of truth that could reshape an empire. The game had only just begun. Winter descended upon Rome like a shroud, and with it came whispers of plague in the eastern provinces. The Maximus family had settled into their new role as keepers, but comfort was an illusion they could no longer afford. 6 months had passed since their covenant with Hadrian, and the emperor's health was failing faster than anyone had anticipated. Sofia stood in the archive's new secret location, a series of underground chambers beneath the Temple of Vesta, accessible only through hidden passages. The Vestal Virgins, it turned out, had been allied with the keepers for generations, their sacred flame symbolizing the eternal truth that must never die. You're troubled, said Licinia, the chief Vestal, a woman of 40 whose eyes held depths of knowledge. The dreams again. They're getting stronger, Sofia admitted. I see Hadrian's death, but that's not what frightens me. I see what comes after. Blood in the Senate, the archive burning, and she paused. I see my own death. Dreams are warnings, not certainties. Licinia said gently. Your mother had the sight too. It's in your Etruscan blood. The ability to read the threads of fate. Did my mother see her own death? She did, and she chose to face it rather than flee. But she also saw you, standing where you stand now, holding a power greater than any emperor's. Before Sofia could respond, Leonardo burst into the chamber, his face flushed from running. Sofia, father needs you immediately. There's been an assassination attempt on Hadrian. They raced through Rome's streets, now slippery with ice. The city was in chaos, Praetorian guards everywhere, citizens huddled in doorways, whispers of conspiracy and war. At their villa, they found Marcus in council with General Nerva and 3 other keeper families who had emerged from hiding. What happened? Sofia demanded. Poison, Marcus said grimly. Hadrian survived, but barely. He's called for you specifically, Sofia. Me? Why? Because, said a cold voice from the doorway, the emperor believes you can identify the poisoner. They turned to see the Praetorian prefect, Servius Macro, a man whose ambition was matched only by his cruelty. He smiled like a wolf evaluating sheep. The emperor is delirious, Macro continued. He speaks of dreams, of visions, of a girl who can see truth, foolishness, of course. But he insists. Sofia met his gaze steadily. Then I must go to him. We'll all go, Marcus said firmly. No, Macro's hand went to his sword. The girl alone. Emperor's orders. Leonardo stepped forward, his hand on his own blade, but Sofia stopped him. It's all right, the emperor needs me. The palace was a fortress. Every corridor had guards. Every shadow could hide an assassin. Macro led her not to the throne room, but to Hadrian's private chambers. The emperor lay on his bed, his skin grey, his breathing labored. Antoninus stood beside him, along with several physicians. Leave us, Hadrian wheezed. Everyone protested, but his glare still held imperial authority. The girl stays, everyone else out. When they were alone, Hadrian struggled to sit up. I'm dying, child. Not from the poison that merely hastened what was already coming. But I need to know who struck, because they'll strike at you next. How can I help, Caesar? Your mother could do it, touch an object and know its history. The Etruscan gift. I've seen her do it once at court. She touched a stolen necklace and named the thief. He gestured weakly to a cup on the table. That held the poison. Tell me who touched it last. Sofia hesitated. She'd felt strange abilities stirring lately, but this, still she picked up the cup, and immediately images flooded her mind. A servant pouring wine, Macro adding something from a vial. But behind him, in shadow, another figure, Antinous. She gasped, dropping the cup. Caesar, you saw my son, didn't you? Hadrian's voice was sad, but unsurprised. I suspected. He's not evil. Just impatient. He believes he can better serve Rome as emperor. Perhaps he's right. He conspired with Macro. No, Macro acts alone, planning to control Antinous once he's emperor. My son is guilty only of knowing and not preventing it. Hadrian coughed, blood speckling his lips. But that's not why I summoned you. There's something else, something more important. He pulled a ring from his finger, an ancient thing of iron, not gold. This belonged to the first Etruscan king of Rome, before the Republic, before the Empire. Your bloodline and mine both descend from him. The ring responds only to those of the blood. Take it. Sofia took the ring, and it grew warm in her hand, almost alive. There's a prophecy, Hadrian continued, hidden in the deepest part of the archive, a prophecy about the last of the Etruscan blood, who will either save Rome or watch it fall. Your mother believed you were that person. Caesar, listen, I have perhaps an hour left. In 3 days there will be a gathering. Macro's supporters plan to purge the Senate of anyone who might oppose them. Your family is on the list, but more than that, they plan to destroy the archive, to rewrite history completely. We'll stop them. You can't, not with force, but there's another way. He gripped her hand, with surprising strength. The gold your mother hid. It's not just wealth. Some of those coins are from the original Roman treasury, marked with protective symbols. They can purchase more than goods. They can purchase loyalty from those who remember the old oaths. I don't understand. The Praetorian Guard wasn't always corrupt. There's an old faction, the Custodes Veritas, the Guardians of Truth. They've been waiting for a sign to act. Show them the marked coins, speak the words truth before power, and they'll remember their true purpose. How do you know all this? Hadrian smiled weakly. Because I was one of them, once, before the purple corrupted me. Now go, quickly. Tell no one what you've learned, not even your father. Trust only. He convulsed, gasping. The door burst open. Antoninus rushed in, followed by physicians. Father. Hadrian looked at his son with a mixture of love and disappointment. Be better than I was, he whispered, and died. The room erupted in chaos. Antoninus was immediately proclaimed emperor, while Macro began issuing orders. Sofia slipped out in the confusion, her mind racing. She had 3 days to save her family and the archive. Racing home, she found the villa in an uproar. Father, we need to talk. Alone, in the hidden chamber, She told him everything: Hadrian's revelation, the coming purge, the custodias veritas. Marcus listened, his face growing graver. "We need those marked coins," he said. "But I've never seen any special markings." "Because you weren't looking with the right eyes," Sofia interrupted. She held up the iron ring, which was now glowing faintly. "This reveals hidden truths." They opened the amphory of gold, and under the ring's light, certain coins gleamed differently. They bore the image of Janus, the two-faced god, but on these special coins, both faces were the same, truth looking both forward and backward. "There are about 100 of them," Leonardo counted. "Is that enough?" "It has to be," Sofia said. "Now we need to find the Custodes Veritas." Old Lucius, who had been quietly standing guard, spoke up. "I know where they meet, Domina. My brother was one of them. They gather at the baths of Agrippa, in the old maintenance tunnels, every 7th day. That's tonight," Marcus realized. "But it's too dangerous." "Everything is dangerous now," Sofia cut him off. "We go tonight." The journey to the baths was treacherous. Macro's men were everywhere, implementing a curfew. They had to use the old sewers, a path Lucius knew from his youth. Giulia had insisted on coming, arguing that her small size might prove useful, and against Marcus's protests, she won. The maintenance tunnels were dark and seemingly empty, but Sofia felt watched. Finally she called out, "Truth before power. We come bearing the marks of Janus." Shadows moved, and suddenly they were surrounded by armed men. Their leader, a grizzled veteran named Quintus Varro, studied them suspiciously. "You're the Maximus family. Why should we trust you?" Sofia held up the marked coins, and under torchlight, they gleamed with their own inner fire. "Because Hadrian himself told me where to find you. Because in 3 days, Macro plans to burn the archive and murder everyone who knows the truth about Rome." Varro examined the coins, then looked at his men. "The signs are true. After 20 years, the call has come." He knelt, and his men followed. "What would you have us do? First, tell me, how many of you are there?" 300 throughout the guard, plus veterans who remember their oaths. "Perhaps 1,000 men total, against 3,000 regular Praetorians," Leonardo calculated grimly. "Numbers aren't everything," Varro said. "We know their weaknesses, their plans, but we need more than knowledge. We need proof of Macro's treachery that even Antoninus can't ignore." "I can get it," Sofia said, the plan forming in her mind. "But it's dangerous." 2 nights later, Rome held its breath. Macro had accelerated his plans, perhaps sensing danger. He had summoned all suspected enemies to the Senate for a special session, a trap everyone recognized, but couldn't refuse. Sofia stood in her mother's finest stola, the iron ring hidden on a chain around her neck. Her family was with her, all with the other keeper families. They walked into the Senate house, knowing it might be their tomb. Macro stood at the center, no longer pretending subservience. "Citizens of Rome, we gather to cleanse our city of those who would corrupt it with lies." He held up scrolls. "These are forgeries, created by the so-called keepers, designed to undermine our glorious history." "Those are from the archive," Sofia protested. "They're authentic." "Silence, girl. You've been examined by priests who confirm you're possessed by Eastern demons, filling your head with visions and lies." The priests nodded, clearly Macro's men in religious garb. The other senators murmured uneasily. Many knew the truth, but feared to speak. However, Macro continued with false magnanimity. "The new emperor is merciful. Renounce your claims, burn the archive publicly, and you may live in exile." "Never," Marcus said firmly. "Then you've chosen death." Macro raised his hand to signal the guards. But Sofia stepped forward. "Wait, I invoke the ancient right of testimonium." The Senate fell silent. It was an old law, rarely used. Any citizen could demand to present evidence before the Senate, and no blood could be shed until they finished. Macro sneered. "You have no evidence." "I have this." Sofia held up a scroll. "Written in your hand, Prefect. Your plan to murder Hadrian, blame Antoninus, then rule as regent." "Impossible." "I burned." Macro caught himself. "You burned the original, but you forgot that your scribe, whom you had killed last night, made copies for insurance. He hid them with the Vestals, knowing they were incorruptible." It was a lie, but Sofia's gift made it convincing. She could see the truth in people's minds, and she wove it into her words. Macro had indeed killed his scribe, and everyone knew it. "Guards, kill her," Macro commanded. But the guards hesitated. Varro had done his work well. Half of them were custodes veritas, and the others were uncertain. That moment of hesitation was all Sofia needed. She pulled out the marked coins, throwing them into the air where they scattered across the Senate floor, each one ringing with an unnatural chime. "Truth before power," she shouted. The response was immediate. Throughout the Senate, guards removed their helmets, revealing themselves as custodes veritas. "Truth before power," they echoed. Macro drew his sword, lunging at Sofia. But Leonardo was there, his training with the street fighters serving him well. Their blades met in a shower of sparks. The Senate erupted into chaos. Macro's loyalists fought the custodes veritas, while senators scrambled for safety. Marcus grabbed Giulia, protecting her with his body, while Sofia ran for the highest platform. "Romans," she shouted, her voice somehow carrying over the melee. "See how quickly we turn on each other. This is what lies bring us. Roman fighting Roman. Kill her." Macro screamed, but he was being pressed hard by Leonardo and two custodes. Sofia held up the iron ring, and it blazed with light. Not natural light, but something older, deeper. The fighting slowed, men staring in awe and fear. "I am Sofia of the Claudia, descendant of the Etruscan kings, keeper of the archive, and I speak truth." Her voice was no longer entirely her own. It carried echoes of her mother, her ancestors, all who had kept the flame of truth alive. "Servius Macro poisoned Emperor Hadrian. He plans to rule through a puppet emperor. He has taken bribes from Parthia, planning to weaken Rome for invasion." "Lies," Macro shouted, but his voice sounded weak against hers. "Then let the gods judge." Sofia pulled out a vial from her robes. "This is the same poison you used on Hadrian. If I'm lying, it won't affect you. The gods protect the innocent. Drink it, and prove your innocence." Macro went pale. The Senate watched in deadly silence. Or Sofia continued, "Confess your crimes and accept exile." "You dare offer me terms," Macro snarled. "I offer you what you never offered others, a choice." At that moment, the great doors opened. Emperor Antoninus entered, accompanied by his personal guard. He had been watching, waiting to see how this would play out. "Macro," he said quietly, "I believe the young keeper has made a reasonable offer." "My lord, I don't know what you did." "Macro, I've always known. I let you act because I thought I could control you once I was emperor. But I see now that some serpents are too venomous to keep as pets." He turned to Sofia. "You've proven your worth, keeper. What do you recommend?" Sofia looked at Macro, seeing into his heart, the fear, the ambition, the small twisted soul that had caused so much pain. "Exile," she said finally. "But first, he returns everything he's stolen, and he provides a full confession of everyone involved in his conspiracies. You show mercy to one who would have shown you none." Antoninus observed, "That's what makes us different from him, Caesar." Macro threw down his sword in disgust. "I'll take exile. But know this, girl, truth is a luxury Rome can't afford. One day, the lies will return, stronger than before." As the guards led him away, Sofia felt suddenly exhausted. The ring's light faded, and she swayed. Leonardo caught her, supporting her. "Is it over?" Giulia asked, emerging from behind Marcus. "This battle," Marcus said, "but not the war." Antoninus approached them. "The keepers have proven their value today. The archive will be protected under my reign, but I have conditions." "Name them," Sofia said, though Leonardo had to help her stand. "First, you'll work with my variants to gradually reveal truths, not all at once. Second, you'll train others in your gifts. Rome needs more than one family guarding its conscience. Third," he paused, "you'll help me become the emperor Rome needs, not the one I might become without guidance." It was more than they could have hoped for. Sofia nodded agreement. Over the following weeks, Rome slowly adjusted to its new reality. The archive was moved to a more secure location, with the Custodies Veritas as its permanent guards. Other keeper families emerged from hiding, bringing their pieces of the great puzzle. But the most surprising revelation came when they finally decoded all of Claudia's hidden messages. The 100 million denarii wasn't just wealth, it was a restoration fund, collected secretly over generations for a specific purpose. Mother planned this all, Sofia explained to her family, as they stood in the completed archive. She knew the empire would reach a crisis point where truth had to emerge. The goal is to build schools, to educate citizens, to create a Rome where people can handle truth because they understand complexity. An educated populace is harder to control, Leonardo pointed out. Exactly, that's why emperors have always feared it. But Antoninus is different. He wants a philosophical empire built on wisdom rather than just power. Marcus looked at his children with pride. They had grown so much. Sofia into a leader, Leonardo into a protector, Giulia into a voice of innocent wisdom that often cut deepest. What about the prophecy? Giulia asked. The one about the last Etruscan who would save or destroy Rome. Sofia touched the iron ring now permanently on her finger. I think it's not about a single moment of salvation or destruction. It's about choosing, every day, whether to build or tear down, whether to reveal or conceal, whether to trust or fear. Very philosophical, Leonardo T. You sound like the emperor, or like mother, Sofia replied softly. That night, they held a private ceremony in the hidden chamber where it all began. They unsealed the last of Claudia's letters, one addressed to all of them. My beloved family, if you're reading this, then you've survived the crucible and emerged stronger. The gold, the archive, the ancient bloodline, these were all tools, but you were the true treasure. Marcus, your dignity in suffering taught them strength. Sofia, your courage in truth taught them leadership. Leonardo, your loyalty taught them protection. Giulia, your innocence taught them hope. Rome will face greater challenges. The empire will rise and fall, transform and evolve. But as long as families like ours remember that truth matters, that dignity exists in all stations, that courage can overcome corruption, then Rome, the idea of Rome, will endure. I am with you always, in your memories, in your choices, in the love that binds you. Until we meet again in the fields of Elysium, with eternal love, Claudia. They stood in silence, tears flowing freely. Then Marcus spoke. Your mother always said that the greatest inheritance wasn't gold but wisdom. You three have proven that true. We all have, Sofia corrected. Even you, father. Especially you. As winter turned to spring, the Maximus family settled into their new role. They were no longer the mocked and humiliated outcasts, nor were they merely restored aristocrats. They were something new, guardians of a Rome that was learning, slowly and sometimes painfully, to face its own truth. The archive grew, not just in documents but in purpose. Students came to learn, historians to research, citizens to understand their true heritage. The gold funded schools throughout the empire, places where slaves' children learned alongside senators' sons. But challenges remained. Provinces rebelled, claiming the revealed truth invalidated Rome's authority. Mystery cults plotted against the keepers, and somewhere in exile Macro planned his return. One evening, as the family dined together, still at one end of their vast table, still close despite everything, a messenger arrived. The seal was strange, ancient. Sofia opened it, her face paling as she read. What is it? Marcus asked. It's from the Parthians. They know about the archive. They want to make a deal, their historical truths for ours. A complete picture of the ancient world. That's dangerous, Leonardo warned. It could undermine Roman authority completely. Or, Giulia said, thoughtfully, it could create understanding. Maybe enemies are just strangers, whose stories we don't know. Sofia looked at her family, seeing in them all the strength they'd gained through their trials. Then we have another choice to make. Together, Marcus said firmly. Whatever we decide as a family. Spring bloomed across Rome, but in the Maximus villa, winter's chill lingered in their hearts. The Parthian letter had divided them for the first time since their trials began. For 3 days they debated behind closed doors while the city celebrated Floralia, the festival of flowers. "It's a trap," Leonardo insisted, pacing the length of the hidden chamber. "The Parthians have been Rome's enemies for generations. Why would they suddenly want to share knowledge?" "Perhaps because they're tired of being enemies," Giulia suggested, arranging dried flowers she'd gathered, a nervous habit she'd developed. Mother's letters speak of understanding, not just controlling truth. Sofia studied the Parthian message again, written in perfect Latin by someone who clearly understood Roman culture. They claimed to have records of Alexander's real campaigns, not the mythology. Documents that show how both our empires have lied about each other to justify wars, which could destroy Roman morale, Marcus pointed out. "Our soldiers fight believing they defend civilization against barbarians. What happens when they learn the barbarians have libraries older than Rome itself?" A knock interrupted them. Old Lucius entered, his face grave. "Domina Sofia, you have a visitor. She says she's from the East, and bears the seal of truth." They exchanged glances. The seal of truth was known only to the keepers. In the atrium stood a woman of perhaps 30 years, her skin bronze, her eyes dark as midnight. She wore Roman dress, but with Persian jewelry, a deliberate mixing of cultures. When she saw Sofia, she smiled. "You have your mother's eyes," she said in accented but perfect Latin. "I am Roxana, daughter of the Parthian archive keeper. Your mother and mine corresponded for years, planning for this moment." "Impossible," Leonardo said, hand on his sword. "Mother would have told us." "Would she?" Roxana challenged. "Or would she have protected you until you were ready?" She produced a letter, sealed with Claudia's personal mark. "She gave this to my mother, 5 years ago, to be delivered when the time was right." Sofia took the letter with trembling hands, using the iron ring to verify its authenticity. The seal glowed true. She broke it open and read aloud, "My dearest ones, if Roxana has found you, then you've already proven yourselves worthy of the next revelation. The archive you protect is not unique. Every great civilization has its keep. We've been working in shadow, building bridges, while our empires build walls. Roxana can be trusted as you would trust family, for in truth she is. The blood of the Etruscan kings flows in Parthia too, carried there by traders centuries ago. She is your cousin in purpose if not in flesh. The choice before you is not whether to trust the Parthians, but whether humanity is ready to learn that enemies are often mirrors, reflecting our own fears back at us. Choose wisely, but more importantly, choose together. Your eternal mother, Claudia." Silence filled the room. Finally, Giulia stepped forward, offering Roxana a cup of wine. "Welcome, cousin." Roxana's composure cracked slightly, tears touching her eyes. "You're very like your mother described, brave in innocence." "How long have you been in Rome?" Sofia asked. 3 months, learning your ways, waiting for the right moment. I've seen your trials, your triumph over Macro. My father believes you're ready for the great work." "Which is?" Marcus asked suspiciously. "Ending the wars between our peoples, not through conquest, but through understanding." Roxana moved to the window, looking out at Rome's eternal bustle. "Do you know why Parthia and Rome truly fight? Not for land or gold, but for the right to define civilization. We each need the other as an enemy to justify our own identity. That's philosophy, not politics." Leonardo scoffed. "All politics is philosophy with swords," Roxana replied. "But what if we removed the need for swords? What if citizens of both empires knew the truth, that we're more alike than different, that our gods share origins, that our hatred is manufactured by those who profit from war?" "You're talking about revolution," Marcus said quietly. "I'm talking about evolution. Your Emperor Antoninus dreams of a philosophical empire. Our King Vologases seeks stability through wisdom. For the first time, both thrones are held by thinkers, not just warriors. This chance won't come again." Sofia felt the iron ring growing warm. a sign of significant truth. What exactly are you proposing? Roxana pulled out a map, marking locations across both empires. Secret schools, funded by your hidden gold and our hidden silver. Places where Roman and Parthian youth learn together, where merchants trade ideas alongside goods, where the truth isn't Roman or Parthian, but human. The Senate would never approve, Marcus said. The Senate doesn't need to know, not at first. We start small, trading posts on the borders, scholarly exchanges, medical knowledge shared during plagues. By the time the warmongers realize what's happening, peace will be more profitable than war. It was audacious, dangerous, and exactly what Claudia would have planned. I need to consult with Antinous, Sofia decided. He deserves to know. No, Roxana grabbed her arm. Not yet. There are factions in both courts that would kill us all rather than see peace. We must build quietly, carefully. She's right, Leonardo admitted grudgingly. Even Antinous has generals who dream of conquering Parthia. If they knew, a commotion in the street interrupted them. Through the window, they saw Praetorian guards surrounding the villa. Not the custard. Veritas. These were new faces, hard and suspicious. We're betrayed, Leonardo hissed, drawing his blade. But Sofia held up her hand, reading the situation with her gift. No, not betrayal. Investigation. Someone saw Roxana enter. She turned to their guest. You need to hide. The underground chamber, Giulia suggested quickly. As Roxana disappeared below, the family arranged themselves casually in the atrium. The doors burst open, and in walked, not soldiers but Antinous himself, dressed simply, accompanied only by 2 guards. Caesar, Marcus bowed. We're honored. Dispense with ceremony, Marcus. I'm here unofficially. Antinous dismissed his guards to the door, then turned to Sofia. You've had an Eastern visitor. There was no point lying to a philosopher emperor. We have. Parthian? Yes. Antinous nodded slowly. Your mother's network was more extensive than even I imagined. Do you know what you're risking? Peace, Sofia said simply. Peace. Antinous laughed bitterly. Do you know what peace would cost Rome? Our entire economy runs on conquest. Our citizens expect expansion. The legions need enemies to fight, or they'll turn on us. Then perhaps Rome needs to change, Giulia said with childhood's fearlessness. Antinous looked at the 10-year-old with surprise. Change Rome? Child, Rome is eternal, unchanging. Rome changes constantly, Giulia interrupted. From kingdom to republic to empire, from small city to master of the world. Change is the only constant. Mother taught us that. The emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then, bring out your Parthian guest. I would speak with her. They had no choice. Roxana emerged, dignity intact despite the danger. She and Antoninus studied each other like duelists. The journey through Parthia was revelation. Sofia had expected barbarian wilderness, but found cities rivaling Rome's, libraries that made her gasp, and irrigation systems that turned desert to garden. Your historians lie about us, Darius said simply. As ours lie about you. That's war's first casualty. Truth. They pushed hard, changing horses at military posts. On the 15th day since leaving Rome, they saw Ctesiphon's walls, a city of circular design, philosophy-made architecture. Father waits in the palace of wisdom, Roxana said, but Macro has turned many against you. There may be violence. Then we face it, Sofia said, touching the iron ring. Truth is stronger than lies, eventually. The palace was a wonder of Persian architecture, its gardens defying the desert climate. In the throne room, King Vologases sat in council, and beside him, like a poisonous shadow, stood Macro. Your Majesty, Roxana bowed. I bring representatives from Rome's keepers of truth. Assassins, Macro shouted. They're here to murder you, Your Majesty, as they murdered Hadrian. Liar, Sofia stepped forward. You poisoned Hadrian, as all Rome knows. Rome knows what its new emperor wants it to know. But here, truth might be different. Macro smiled coldly. Your Majesty, these children claim to want peace. but they bring soldiers. They claim to share knowledge, but they hide a fortune that could buy armies. They're spies, nothing more. Volagases, an elderly man with intelligent eyes, raised his hand for silence. I will hear both sides. Young keeper, speak your truth. Sofia felt the ring burning on her hand. Truth wanted to be free. She began to speak, not just with her voice but with the gift in her blood. She told of their family's fall and rise, of Claudia's sen, of the archive that preserved truth for all humanity. As she spoke, images formed in the air, not magic, but something older, the Etruscan gift manifesting. The court gasped as they saw Marcus cleaning latrines while maintaining dignity, saw the children discovering the hidden chamber, saw Hadrian's death and Macro's confession. Illusions, Macro protested, but his voice was weak against the power of truth made visible. Then let me show your truth. Sofia turned to him, and new images formed. Macro taking Parthian gold himself, planning to provoke war so he could return as Rome's savior, willing to sacrifice thousands for personal glory. How? Macro staggered. That's impossible. Truth is never impossible, Sofia said. Only inconvenient. Volagases stood, descending from his throne. I've heard enough. Guards, arrest this Roman criminal. But Macro had one last card. He pulled out a vial, poison, the same that killed Hadrian. Come closer and I'll drink it. My death here will mean war. Rome will blame Parthia. Or, Leonardo said, moving faster than thought, his blade cutting the vial from Macro's hand. You'll face justice in Rome. He pinned Macro's arms. Some enemies deserve mercy. You're not one of them. Volagases approached Sofia. Your gift is remarkable, young keeper. Your mother wrote of it, but I didn't believe. Show me one more truth. Show me peace between our peoples. Sofia closed her eyes, letting the visions flow. She showed possible futures, trade routes flourishing, Roman and Parthian scholars working together, diseases cured by shared knowledge, children playing across borders that became bridges. Beautiful dreams, Volagases said softly, but dreams nonetheless. All reality begins as dreams, Roxana said. Father, give us a chance to try. The old king looked at his daughter, then at the young Romans who'd risked everything for peace. Very well, we begin with small step trade agreement, scholar exchanges, medical cooperation during the plague season. If these succeed, we consider more. It wasn't everything they'd hoped, but it was a beginning. Over the following days they negotiated details. Macro was sent back to Rome in chains to face trial. Secret letters were exchanged between Antoninus and Volagases, two philosopher rulers, recognizing kindred spirits. On their last night in Ctesiphon, Volagases called Sofia privately to his study. Your gift, young keeper, it's both blessing and curse. You see truth, but truth can be terrible. Your mother saw her own death, didn't she? Yes. And you, have you seen yours? Sofia hesitated, then nodded. I die young, ensuring peace holds. It's worth it, perhaps. Or perhaps futures can change. Your mother believed in fixed fate, but I believe in choice. He handed her an ancient scroll. This is Persian magic, not illusions but wisdom about time itself. Study it, perhaps you can change what seems unchangeable. As they prepared to leave, Darius approached Leonardo. You fought well for a Roman. Consider this. He offered a Persian sword, its blade inscribed with poetry. It says enemy and friend are words. Humans are truth. Leonardo accepted it gravely. I'll treasure it. The journey home was swifter, hope lending speed. They arrived to find Rome buzzing with news. Macro's trial had exposed deeper corruption, but also inspired reform. The Senate had approved limited trade with Parthia, calling it profitable pragmatism rather than peace. It's working, Marcus said, embracing his returned children. Slowly, carefully, but it's working. That night, the family gathered in the hidden chamber. The gold had been diminished, used to fund schools and hospitals that secretly promoted understanding. The archive had grown, now containing Parthian scrolls, alongside Roman ones. "We've started something that will outlive us all," Sofia said. "Good things should outlive their creators," Giulia observed, like mother's love outlived her. They stood in comfortable silence, a family transformed by trial into something greater. Outside, Rome slept, dreaming its eternal dreams. But in hidden schools, Roman and Parthian children learned together. In border markets, merchants traded goods and ideas. In libraries, scholars discovered their enemies were colleagues. Peace grew quietly, like flowers, through pavement cracks, fragile but persistent. But Sofia kept thinking about Vologis's gift, the scroll about time and choice. That night she unrolled it, reading by candlelight. The Persian text spoke of moments that shaped all other moments, decisions that rippled across years. At the bottom, in her mother's handwriting, was a note: "Some prophecies are warnings, not certainties. Choose wisely, my daughter. Choose life." Sofia understood then that her mother hadn't accepted death, but chosen it, believing it necessary. But perhaps it hadn't been. Perhaps the future was more fluid than the past. She made a decision. The peace between Rome and Parthia would not require her martyrdom. She would find another way. Looking out at the stars, she whispered, "I choose life, Mother. For all of us." The iron ring pulsed warm on her finger, approving. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: senators who opposed peace, merchants who profited from war, zealots in both empires who needed enemies. But tonight, hope lived, and in Rome, as in Parthia, children went to sleep learning that enemies were just strangers, whose stories they hadn't heard yet. The greatest fortune wasn't gold, but understanding. The deepest vault wasn't underground, but in hearts open to truth. And somewhere, in whatever realm the dead inhabit, Claudia smiled.